Welcome to the latest installment of the Sharp Football Best Ball Show. I'm your host, Tod Burros, and I can be found on Twitter at BestBallNFL. Today, I will be joined by John Daigle of 4for4 Football, and we will be holding a live draft. John can be found at not J Daigle on Twitter. And I believe he's also there on Thread, if memory serves, as I hunted for an alternative to the hellscape of Twitter. So we are going to be doing a live draft, but not any live draft, folks. No, we will be taking the new format from Underdog Fantasy, Weekly Winners, out for a drive. Weekly Winners is a fun new format that allows you the freedom to create and break all of the normal best ball rules. And I will do a short teaching segment on the format and how I'm attacking it prior, and I'll go over that with John, and then he and I will gauge his thoughts, try and get on the same page, because this really is so different than your traditional best ball format. Speaking of Underdog, this podcast is brought to you by Underdog and the biggest fantasy football tournament of all time, Best Ball Mania 4. Don't know what Best Ball is? It's simple. You just enter Best Ball Mania on Underdog's slick mobile app, draft your team, and that's it. Yep, it's set it and forget it as Underdog optimizes your lineup weekly to create the highest scoring one. It's here. It's Best Ball Mania 4, and it's your shot at a first place prize of $3 million. Get signed up on UnderdogFantasy.com or via the App Store with the promo code SHARPKIT, and they'll not only double your first deposit up to $100, but you'll also receive the Sharp Football Draft Kit for just $1. That includes 40 exclusive fantasy football articles, which will help your chances at winning the $3 million prize. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code SHARPKIT. John Daigle is formerly of NBC Roto World, and much like some of the team at Sharp Football, John, it's really glad to have you on. Sorry about the couple of the old glitchos.
Oh, no glitchos. That's okay. Glad to be on. I have watched quite a few of your shows, actually. So I've been enjoying the work you've been doing here on the Best Ball shows at Sharp Football and the Better Sports Network. So just excited to be here to talk about it with you.
Dude, that is awesome. I love that. A lot going on over at Sharp Football, and including in that is Warren Sharp's 2023 preview book is now available for download. It's over 500 pages of the most unique and in-depth analysis to get you ready for the NFL season. In addition to Warren's unparalleled write-ups, the book features fantasy analysis from Rich Rebar, rookie analysis from Ryan McChrystal, and much more, including incredibly detailed breakdowns of all 32 team tendencies and a deep dive into each team's 2023 NFL schedule. Go to sharpfootballanalysis.com to get your copy. You will not regret it. It is a monster of information. John, a lot like you. Give us an idea of some of the things that you've been working on.
Lots of video for right now, as my team previews at 4for4 are being held until the end of July whenever veterans report to training camp. But my best ball tiers with individual player analysis and a lot of big picture outlooks for offenses I expect to regress both positively and negatively, given as that's how I usually begin my studies for the offseason, is just looking by the offenses that were overvalued and undervalued and overperformed last season. And so a lot of that's in there at 4for4.com right now. And then, on the video side, we do a stream, which you've already joined us just a couple weeks ago, the Best Ball Happy Hour every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. So anyone who's interested in watching more drafts can always tune in then.
Yeah, I really enjoyed doing that show. I think we had Hayden Winks on. And who was the other guy that was on? Is he a partner of yours?
I can't remember who it was, the fourth one now, because I have so many people.
Sorry, I put you
No,
on the
no,
spot.
no. It's okay. The point of the entire show is to, in my opinion, anyways, is to bring everyone together to talk about best ball that would never usually overlap. Like you and I are here right now, but for the happy hour, like how often are you and Hayden and myself and someone else going to jump on? Last week, for instance, I had 5 different people on. So it's literally like a happy hour. We run into each other at the bar, we draft a team, and we're just yelling off the cuff together.
I love that. That is a really unique concept. And I encourage everyone who is listening to this show, if you haven't checked out John's happy hour before and you missed my episode, go back and see it. I think I drafted a rather boring average team that day, but we had an awful lot of fun doing it. Right, John?
Yes, and I try to make it as relaxed and no rules as possible. I don't want anyone to get stuck and like too many construction theories and we are all talking about that naturally as you and I will today, but I try to make it as fun as possible. As easy to understand, I should say, as possible.
Well, let me just say that you have a fantastic radio voice and a face that is better than mine for video. So really glad to have you on. I asked you if you wanted to do a BBM, a Best Ball Mania draft, or if you wanted to, get a little freaky and try one of these weekly winners. I want to go over, as I mentioned, some of the key things that we need to know in the weekly winners drafts, John. A couple key thoughts. Sean, can you put that up? There we go.
All right. We have notes. Good.
Yeah. All right. So a couple weekly winners, for those out there who aren't as fluent in best ball, and now we're asking them to take on a whole and enjoy a show with this whole new concept. So basically what weekly winners is, rather than having all the money at the end of the season, where it's all given out pretty much in week 17, or if you make the playoffs and get eliminated, you get a little taste in week 15 or 16. Each week, $20,000 first prize and 7,300 teams will make money. But it's very hard for people to grasp how different this is, John, than tournament best ball. Weekly tournaments only. There's no advancing. There's no playoffs. Only 3,300 of 261,000 entries each week, even cash. That's less than 3%. So in my view, we want to try and access super spike weeks. And what I've been doing is, as I start to draft my lineup, I will pick who that spike week guy is going to be. Since we're doing a live one, I think we might have to have a backup plan in case someone snipes us. And you have to understand, let's say we pick Tyreek Hill in the first round and we say, is he a guy that we can build around? And we say, yes, he is. Well, think of the week that he gets 40 points, John. There's going to be another 21,500 teams that have Tyreek Hill. So how has that affected the way that you've looked at things so far?
I'll take another route because Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, not the same player, but both could be the overall wide receiver one in any given week. And for example, we talked about the show earlier, the Best Ball Happy Hour. Hayden Weeks came on with me to discuss strategy this past Wednesday on this particular format, weekly winners. And we took AJ Brown, but what's happening is we don't have the exact percentage right now, but I guarantee you at least 70% of the teams that took a Tyreek Hill and AJ Brown are then automatically piecing together, I need the quarterback. And so what I've been doing then is instead pivoting. In AJ Brown, you can still get Devontae Smith, but even if I do, it's still a good passing offense. I can still try to be the team that instead gets Patrick Mahomes with those two players and then stacks the Chiefs offense with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, because I think a minority of the teams are doing that much more often than stacking Hurts along with them. Also, rather than taking 2 wide receivers for Hurts or Patrick Mahomes? What if I say, okay, I'm going to take Dallas Goedert instead with A.J. Brown? And it's the same thing. I don't have to have Jalen Hurts. So really what I'm doing is taking good offenses. I'm trying to stack them all uniquely, even if that means taking an entirely different quarterback in its stack. And then what else is happening, Todd? I'm sure you've noticed is wide receivers, who we've already mentioned a couple, and tight ends, elite tight ends, their ADPs are all increasing because everyone's trying 1-1 at the onesie position formats. So just
not everyone, but we're seeing
a lot of teams.
I would say 3 to 4 teams in every tournament at least get that much right.
Since you're not really, I mean, trust me, it'd be great to win every week, but you're not really paying too much attention to bye weeks in that they are affecting your one position, your quarterback, your tight end. It's just fragile builds with one quarterback and one tight end. And so if that's the case, then I do like to try to stack those players differently. Maybe even skip out on one of them, like an elite tight end, and stack a quarterback with his late round tight end instead, because I'm just fighting against the field. I'm fighting against the room every single time. We're also, not to jump ahead of myself here, but we're seeing just good players be passed on. Like, people aren't drafting the best players anymore. They're allowing like a Joe Burrow or whatever to slip 14 spots because they can't stack him, and thus they don't want him. Whereas I say, I'll take my chances. I'll find a way to stack Burrow without Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I'll go Tyler Boyd and Irv Smith later on if I need to. I'll go Joe Mixon, Travion Williams. But I'm not letting good players pass by on ADP. I'm no longer letting Michael Pittman slip 24 spots, because that's what's happening in these formats. Everyone's just passing on good players at ADP because they're so obsessed with stacking and divisional stacking, and they're just letting high scorers go by. So I'm just targeting ceiling players is all I'm doing instead.
Yeah, so I've had a different view. So I'm really interested to share a couple drafts with you and take you through how I've been doing it. Let's take a look at one of I gave our producer a couple different ones to put up. So here is a team, right? So it has 1 quarterback, 6 running backs, 8 wide receivers, and 3 tight ends. Other than the 1 quarterback, John, that's not that different than, a lot of builds that are out there. But you'll notice that I took Garrett Wilson in the first round, and I chose him to be my spike week stud, right? I've coined the term super spike week. And you're right. I don't expect this team to win every week. But what I want to do is, if I get a 40-point must-have week out of Garrett Wilson with Aaron Rodgers, I want the rest of my team to be very different. So as you mentioned, at tight end, I have an elite tight end, but I took 3. Running back, I took Breece Hall because he fell and it was 3 picks late. It wasn't a decision to stack as much as just adding the best player. So you'll notice, though, that what I did here was kind of just try and mix it a little bit. Let's go to the next one, which this one's not my ideal one. This one is a lot closer to what I've been doing a lot of. It's a 1-8-6-3. 1 quarterback. That quarterback is late. It's Matthew Stafford. I feel like very few teams are going to do 1 quarterback with a late quarterback, but Cooper Kupp is an elite spike week guy. But you'll notice, not only did I take 6, I stopped at 6 wide receivers, but I took a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round wide receiver, stopped for a while, and stopped with 6. So to me, John, that's how I differentiated this team. And then I've got 8 different running backs, hoping to get 2 spots in the flex. And I've got 3 high-end spike week type tight ends. Your thoughts on this team?
Zero RB is something that initially came to mind to me as well whenever I first saw this format, because we know running back ceilings are higher than wide receivers, but they're more volatile. They're harder to catch. So what if we're just trying to outscore everyone for 1 week? shouldn't we be targeting like all the volatility at running backs? Shouldn't we be taking up all the backups and just taking chances like that to get it right one week? And so I agree. I love the 8 to 10 RB builds and then relying less on wide receivers. So maybe that does mean starting early on wide receivers. But even last year, if we're focusing solely on a different format, yes, but the best ball, but Kerrane's 2 million winning 2 million winning lineup. We do recall that he had that winning lineup because Austin Eckler and Saquon Barkley and Dalvin Cook were going too late at that time. And so that's how I feel right now is that, okay, if running backs like the guys you have are going later than expected because everyone's soaking up a wide receiver, what if we get unique and just soak up all of them at running back? What if we just keep on drafting them, hoping to get those backup points whenever they're in a pinch, almost relying on volatility, which is what I want to do in this format. So I agree. I love the heavy running back approach.
Yeah. So basically, this is incorporating a couple different things that I'm trying to do. You also notice that I have a lot of week 10 and week 11 buys, so that because the goal is to try and get that 1 week when your guy, Cooper Kupp goes for 40. I want as many players active that week as possible. So that's kind of one of my tiebreakers. But if you look at it again, it's a 0 running back build with a hyper fragile wide receiver. There's not too many teams that are going to stop at 6. 3 elite tight ends, so to speak, with spike weeks. And it's trying to, each one of those things, John, narrows you down to where you're competing with less and less people, so that if I get it right, there's not going to be as many people. Let's look at one more, and then we'll get going ourselves. Is there one other one? I wanted to look at that one other one. Yep, there we go. All right. So I think Justin Fields is, he's going way early, John. He's one of my favorite spike week studs. And so this one I did the opposite with. I did 5 running backs, but I took 2 stud running backs in the first 2 rounds with the same bye week. I've got an elite tight end, and I'm going with 10 different wide receivers. The first 2 are more floor guys, and then almost every other wide receiver on the team is someone I identified as a spike week guy, including a double stack with Mooney and Claypool with Fields. Thoughts on this one?
I'm glad that we showed many different builds because, again, this is heavy wide receiver. I believe this is how most people are drafting, right?
I still see most of the quarterbacks off the board by the 18th round.
Okay.
So in the drafts that I'm in, I still think there are 4 to 5, 6 at least teams that are, just not really figured this out yet. And then I do feel like, and again, you'll notice that there's a lot of week 13 buys to go with Justin Fields. Both my tight ends are off when Fields is off. You've got obviously his receivers. The 2 key running backs are out the same week. So I feel like there's a few different things going on here. And even though it is a 1-5-10-2 that probably, like you said, a lot of people are doing, it is separated enough to hopefully sort me closer to the top on the week that Justin Field gives you the 40 points.
And if we're doing the 1 QB build, yes, as you mentioned, to grab the guy who, and I know Rich Rebar, even in Warren Sharp's book, mentioned reasons for regression due to Justin Fields' explosive run rate last year, which is not sustainable. But to still average a league high 10.8 rushing points per game, like that's a pretty good way to build your onesie position at quarterback. So certainly not a position I hate. And also, you did not get suckered into DJ Moore ADP just to stack Justin Fields. As you mentioned, you grabbed ancillary options because that's how you get unique as opposed to everyone else with Justin Fields. So I don't hate it, but my preferred way is still heavy at running back.
All right. Well, and I'm certainly willing to build one that way. And you'll look, that even Mooney, I could have taken him the round before, but I took him 3 picks after ADP. I don't feel the need to reach. All right, let's move off this. I am going to enter us into the live weekly winners. And Sean, if you could get the board up. John, are you able to see that good?
Let me zoom in here. Let me make sure I got HD. Yes, we're good. I can do this.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So we're going to fill pretty soon, and we'll see what.
For a Friday night too, Underdog, absolutely insane.
Yeah.
People just sitting at home drafting. That was like Monday or Tuesday, I believe, that the Pomeranian already filled because everyone was just literally at home slow drafting over the holiday. It's like, what are y'all doing? Go outside, touch grass.
I don't believe in grass anymore.
Get that sun in, Todd. Like the season's coming. Maybe you do understand, but the season comes and you don't get outside. You don't see friends. You got to make it happen now.
Yeah. What's this thing you described? Friends.
Friends and sun. Yeah.
What is this this concept that I am waiting for? Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to join too soon because I did want to kind of discuss strategy, and there we go. So, as they say, all will be revealed, and we will, in a second, be revealed as the 6th pick. So, what I like to do, John, when I draft, I think I mentioned this on your pod. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys I know that I would want to draft, that I feel comfortable building around if need be. Who do you like as the 6th guy?
Among this group, it probably is Tyreek Hill. I don't think we need to get cute with the top picks since it still takes a top pick to get them. Usually they don't leak through. And then we can, like I said, we start getting and figuring out ways to get unique on the comeback really is when it begins.
Yep. All right. And then we'll have some good conversations as we go. I will defer to you after I give my thoughts. And we're going to build a team. Damn it.
I'm excited. I like this format just because it's weird. Underdog even put this format out because they knew they could not have a company if they just keep on doing Best Ball Mania and the discourse is the same. You have to change it up. You have to make different conversations in every aspect of best ball, and that's what they're doing with every format.
Well, I know that, Hayden and I talked earlier when I had him on my first pod, and he's going to come back and we're going to talk about this or early August. But I know this was his baby, and he believes strongly, and I agree with him, that the problem with the normal best ball format is once the season starts, there really isn't much conversation until the playoffs, right? The weekly winners, you have every week, I'm going to do 100 teams in this. I'm going to have 100 chances to each week to win $20,000. And that's a lot of fun. So Eckler went. I like Cup more than Hill, but I am open to either. John, who would you rather have?
Cup is my, in a vacuum, 102 over Tyreek Hill, over Jamar Chase as well. So to me, it's an easy Cup here.
Yeah. So in my studying, Cup had 100% usable weeks compared to Justin Jefferson, who I think it was 83 off the top of my head. And he even averaged 1 point more above usable each week than the top guy, Justin Jefferson. So I agree with you very much on that. So let's add people to the queue. So we've got 10 names. I am not crazy about taking the quarterbacks here, obviously. So I don't mind adding Taylor. I don't mind adding Barkley. I don't even mind adding Andrews or Pollard. Any thoughts on some of those names?
I do not think a lot of those names will make it to us, but as you mentioned, I don't mind skipping quarterback and going a different direction. That doesn't even necessarily mean we have to skip Like we have to draft Matthew Stafford later, but I just don't mind waiting and grabbing another elite skill position here.
I agree. And I certainly don't mind Jonathan Taylor, who I think has fallen too far. And if anybody above makes it, but you see 9 in the queue, 4 picks away. I mean, right now, Adams, Amon-Ra, Nick Chubb, and Wilson, any of those 4 or Waddle, we're going to get one of those 5. I like all 5 of those, John.
Speaking of Waddle, do you think, like, what percentage would you give that people that draft Tyreek Hill also draft Waddle when he comes back to them?
I think you're going to see probably about 10 to 15% of teams in this that have the 3, Tyreek, Waddle, and Tua.
I think if I drafted Tyreek and Waddle, I would immediately skip Tua and draft Mike White instead.
I did one with both.
Yeah.
And those were the only 2 quarterbacks that I took. Because to me, that Tua team, that's a team I want Tua, right? Because I'm not trying to differentiate that. I'm going to try and get that and then differentiate the rest of my team so that it can be unique, if that makes sense.
Of course it does.
We've got a lot of great choices here. I mean, I love Garrett Wilson here.
Sure. Garrett Wilson, completely fine.
Or we could take Waddle, who has the same bye week as Kupp. I think both of those are good choices.
Let's go Garrett Wilson. We'll take a little bit of an ADP dip, not by much, but we'll take Garrett Wilson here.
I love Garrett Wilson this year.
This also continues starting us with what we mentioned earlier about how I like to build with early wide receivers and then hammering running back.
Yep, and I'm not on Henry or Josh Jacobs too much, but I think you've got to put him in the queue. There's nobody here that I want to add. So we've got 9 in the queue with 8 to go. So we know we're going to get someone we want. Is there anyone else you'd want to add? Metcalf, Field? Oh, I don't mind Fields too. I think that would be really nice. Kupp, Wilson, Fields. I think that's pretty unique right there if we can get it.
Fields, I'm open to for sure. If Devonta comes back to us, nope, not a chance. That's okay. If
I had to do so, that's the order of queue for me.
Okay. Why is Mark Andrews slipping?
I don't know. If he makes it, it's a no-brainer.
Correct.
If Olaf makes it, it's a no-brainer. That would give us 3 different options for our one stack.
All right. Well, we're guaranteed one of them, so it looks like the decision's made for us.
Andrews, right?
Andrews, yes.
Or Andrews or Olaf?
Let's do Andrews.
Okay.
Unless you're seeing something else.
No. I like getting the elite tight end.
Okay.
And now we can go onesie at the tight end position without, being freaky, doing anything freaky. It's a natural.
And we can also tack on Isaiah Likely later if we want to get a little more unique as well as insurance policy.
I love Likely, but the way that I think on these things is I don't want superfluous. In other words, this team is built around the concept that Andrews is going to be healthy.
Fair.
And so that's one of the big mistakes I think people are making with this format is they're trying to put 2 or 3 chips, and this is exactly what I mean. I think people are trying to accomplish 2 or 3 things in the same draft, where I'm only trying to accomplish one thing, which is to leverage my super spikes week stud and give the most dice rolls for the rest of my team to hit to support it. Does that make sense?
Of course. And Andrews, as everyone already knows, they're back on him with ease. But the second most points per game last year among tight ends, in games that Lamar Jackson played. Also, the last 2 seasons, it's not Travis Kelce, it's Mark Andrews who leads the league in end zone targets. There's a lot of discourse about the Ravens wide receiver that could potentially unseat Mark Andrews, but that's not happening. Even under the new offense under Todd Monken, Mark Andrews would lead this team in targets by a mile.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing here is we could go 5 early wide receivers with the tight end, pick up one of those stack guys late, and then just do you kind of were talking 9 or 10. Cooper, I like Cooper here. That's another good spiky guy where if Deshaun Watson falls, that could be our main stack supported by 3 other studs.
I like Amari Cooper as well. Let's do it.
Awesome. All right. So now we're 10 picks away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, this is normally where I would be pushing up the tight ends a little bit. But because we've got Andrew, we don't need to do that. I would love Kenny Walker here. I would love Hopkins here. I wouldn't mind Lockett.
I think we'll get a few of these.
Dobbins and Jones.
The Kadarius Toney range at 60 overall is when usually you start seeing a lot of ADP slides. The fact that, yes, Kadarius Toney may still be the Chiefs' number 1 receiver, maybe, but the fact that people are passing on good fantasy players for Kadarius Toney just to fill their stacks is still so wild to me in these formats. I think that's the advantage. Again, Todd, I think the advantage is taking the edge on ADPs and dipping ADPs.
So, John, if I understood you correctly, what you're saying is Kadarius Toney is a superfluous pick at his ADP. Did I get that right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. And I agree with that. And I actually had a conversation on Twitter this very day about how I don't think you can have 0 Kadarius Toney, but there's 3 or 4 things, including the fact that he can't stay healthy and he seems to have some mental challenges.
It's Christian Watson. Everyone's arguing about volatility for players, but no one actually isn't taking into account.
What do you think about adding? We're on the clock. I'm sorry to interrupt.
You're good.
What do you think about adding Nuck to this? I think that's a really cool pick.
Mark Andrews. Sure, let's do it. I think it sounds like it boils down to the Patriots or the Titans. It sounds like it's probably the Patriots, honestly, where he lands.
I still think he's waiting, hoping that some team will with a better offense will come up. But he was pretty elite when he played last year. And we don't need to count on him, but he's a guy who could give you a 30, 40-point week as a 4th tight end. I thought that was an interesting way to go. And if we take a 5th wide receiver, here, we can really stop for a while. But I also really like this next group, some of the names in this next group of running backs as well. So I'll be open to either here if you are.
We will see who falls. Tyler Lockett would be nice, but we don't think he's going to make it back. Yeah, I guess we could.
I'm not on Madison. The only my favorite of the running backs is Pierce for half PPR, but I am open to. Let's see. I think Evans is a really great 5th wide receiver. With super spikes. But Godwin or Pierce. I mean, I don't. Any of the top 3 names I'm good with. Which one do you want?
No running back yet. Let's go Evans.
You got it.
I still like Deontay Johnson and Treylon Burks quite a bit, but for this kind of build, Evans is fine.
I think you made a very good choice. So this is where I will push Watson up a little bit because I think he is. He's a guy we could do a 1Z on, feel really good about it. You've got a couple guys we could even add to the stack later if we choose. I like Dotson. I love David Montgomery. I think Swift would.
There's still an outside chance too that DeAndre Hopkins lands with Cleveland because of Deshaun. So we have to take a chance on that double stack if we can get it.
On which one?
On if DeAndre Hopkins were to land in Cleveland because of Deshaun Watson.
Oh, right.
I think we need to take a chance on that.
Yeah, I think if Watson makes it, he's the pick.
If he makes it, yeah.
And I think Montgomery would be a really good first running back. I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. If you don't agree, I think in a half PPR, with that offensive line, he's the guy who's going to get the touchdowns.
It's fine, but I think I prefer Treylon Burks and then calling it quit at wide receiver. There you go. We don't have to worry about it then.
You don't have to twist my out of Watson, Montgomery, and Dotson. You don't have to twist my arm. I would even go Pacheco. But Watson made it.
Watson's the pick. Yeah, the only thing about the Lions is Jamal Williams' touchdowns inside the 1 yard line last year were the most of any running back since 2015. And remember, to score from the 1 yard line, to run from the 1 yard line, these touchdowns we keep pinning on David Montgomery, you still have to make it there. And they only did that because Amon-Ra St. Brown got tackled inside the 5 yard line 7 different times. How often is a receiver really going to get shoestring tackled again? It's not going to happen. So I'm actually more on the passing game, Amon-Ra and Jahmyr Gibbs, than I am David Montgomery. Although at this ADP, David Montgomery is a value because the Lions literally every single carry inside the 5 yard line from last year, missing from last year, up for grabs, vacated. Also, the most running back touches in the entire league up for grabs between Montgomery and Gibbs. So we can draft both of them and value both of them.
I agree. So, again, a lot of people will look at the end of a certain build and say, well, there'll be a lot of builds like that, but there aren't going to be too many that start 1-0-5-1, John. I feel like we've really differentiated ourselves with a lot of great talent. And now it's just a matter of adding volume at the running back position.
Oh, yeah. And again, that's kind of what our plan was initially, especially because we could have pivoted. But since Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave fell, we kind of saw what was coming and that we were going to start stacking running backs later on and embrace that volatility.
The other thing that I really like about this draft is we got Kupp 1 pick after ADP, Wilson 4 picks, Cooper 5 picks, Evans we went a little early, okay. Andrews 7 picks after ADP. This team is adding up a lot of different things. So Pacheco, White, and Connor. I'm not on John Connor, but either of the other two would be very, very happy for me. Your thoughts?
I would go, I was going to say I'd go Rashad White. Doesn't matter anymore just for the pass catching. I think James Conner is still a good pick here to lead us every down back whenever he's healthy.
I'll do it under mild protest. I'm just not on him this year.
In this kind of format, why don't you like Conner?
Well, I just think that he's not that efficient. I think that people are underestimating the downgrade. Cliff Kingsbury, the air raid offense has always been very running back friendly because of the spreading of the field. And I just think Pacheco had a lot more juice, but that's okay. That's one thing I like about doing drafts with other people is that it gets you some volume on people that you just get in a habit of fading.
Yeah, it's just the fact that Pacheco is such a nothing in the passing game. That's why they knew they could afford to wait for Jerick McKinnon there.
Half PPR. I worry about that less.
Sure.
And we took what's his name? We lost his ADP. I felt like he was past ADP. Maybe he wasn't. I think Javonte Williams would be very interesting here, as would Kamara. I like P. Ryan a lot. If you want pass catching backs, I mean he's in line for a pretty big role. Charbonnet is a perfect guy. I love Penny for this kind of build because you're going to have 10 running backs And if Penny has, he's a human big week. So those are some of my thoughts. But when we get on the clock, we can take a guy that you feel good about.
Kamara is definitely interesting with this kind of build. Yeah, I agree. Charbonnet and Rashad Penny's fine. We're about in that range too. Like Hayden Wink says, from rounds 13 on, since this contest is really just being about unique, like a DFS contest in which you're trying to get the 1% plays, you really should start reaching on ADP and ignoring it from rounds 13 on.
Yeah, I would take Penny here if this was just me. I might pass and take Kamara, but I like P. Ryan too. I like Charbonnet. I did one draft where I reached for Penny and Charbonnet made it back. Kamara's there if you want him.
Kamara does make sense.
All right, let's take Kamara because, again, we can take a chance because we're going to have 10 running backs. We can take a chance that he's suspended for a couple games. Okay.
Charbonnet is in the same boat as Rashad or as Kenneth Walker was last year. And that, remember, Kenneth Walker's ADP was down because Rashad Penny is in the way. But it only takes one thing to happen, and suddenly the next running back's up. And Charbonnet, I still expect to open on third, fourth down pass catching role over Walker, who was such a dud, couldn't earn targets at all in the passing game.
I'm interested what this guy does. G. Frazier, 1-4-2-1 build, and he went in Njoku. His second tight end, which I think is not efficient. That's an interesting team. Not good, but interesting. Mm-hmm. He had Herbert without a stack.
You see a lot of that in these contests too, that a lot of drafters just like make interesting teams. They're just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping it sticks.
Yeah, and that's why I mean, I'm seeing so many dead teams. Not dead, because we've seen in DFS, John, as you know, non-optimal lineups win the $1 million, right? It happens, but I don't feel the need to be too cute as long as I'm mixing it up positionally while still taking value. I'm okay with Brian Robinson, and I love Elijah Mitchell for this build. I also am okay with A-Chain and Jamal Williams. Which one do you like?
I think I like, do you prefer Brian Robinson or Elijah Mitchell?
I prefer Elijah Mitchell for this build.
Let's do Elijah Mitchell for this build. I like Brian Robinson more than Elijah Mitchell, but for this build, again, when we're embracing volatility, Christian McCaffrey gets injured, it's all Elijah Mitchell.
Yep.
The hype around Elijah Mitchell's standalone value and thus eating into McCaffrey is still a little overblown. McCaffrey is very clearly the RB1. Even in the 6 games that he overlapped with Elijah Mitchell, McCaffrey led all running backs, not just 49ers, but all running backs in target share. So I don't really care about what everyone's saying about Mitchell like cutting into McCaffrey's workload.
Well, I mean,
a lot of that were blowouts too, so you can ignore it.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I just feel that in the games where Mitchell was gone, McCaffrey handled. They didn't sub in someone else for Mitchell's carries. When Mitchell was there, they were giving him 7-8 carries in a game. But the real value of Mitchell is a McCaffrey injury. And again, we're building a pretty funky running back room here. Now, a lot of the guys I wanted haven't been there, but we are, going to try and make up with it with volume. And we're going to stick with one tight end and one quarterback. And we're going to just have a lot of names of guys who just have to get us enough that are elite wide receivers and elite tight end quarterback get us what we're going to need that week.
Devon A-Chain is a hot name here. I don't mind leaping the pack for Jaylen Warren. Yeah.
I think I like A-Chain here.
Cool. Perfectly fine.
He, we got him 7 picks after ADP. I'm willing to take it. I like Jaylen Warren. I'm willing to take a chance. Herbert was very efficient last year. Kendra Miller. I think, okay, so here's something interesting. Normally, John, I would never put Kendra Miller and Kamara on the same team because Jamal Williams is also there.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if Kamara's suspended, the guy who's going to step in is Kendra Miller. I think he actually does fit this build.
There's some rumblings out of New Orleans too that Kendry's the one they're highest on. I think they may want to get him installed immediately.
Yeah, so let's see who makes it back. But, we're talking about different possibilities. I love Tyler Algier this year. At this ADP behind a great offensive line, I think there's a very good chance he has a role from day one. And again, if Bijan goes down, he's a league winner.
He's going to get, the second running back for Atlanta last year averaged 10 touches. But the way this offense works, easy schedule as well, significantly improved defense with all the additions they had in free agency, including like David Onyemata and Caden Ellis, who are familiar with DC Ryan Nielsen's defense and play calling. Like that team's going to be good. Not like good as a contender, but good in a weak division. And so they're going to pad leads all the time. So I like Algier a lot, even for redraft formats.
Better Boss mentioned that he likes Mike Evans playing with Baker Mayfield this year. One thing I haven't figured out yet, this is a new format for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to respond to messages. I thought it would be easy. I'm not seeing it. I see it. So we'll have to cover that another time. But if you guys are following this and you do want to make comments, I will mention the comments as we go. And all right, so Miller or Warren?
We got to go Warren. We got to go Warren.
Okay.
Have to. Especially for your reasoning. I don't mind buying into that about not wanting to put Miller and Kamara in the same lineup because.
No, I'm saying I do like it for this kind of
okay.
For a weekly winner because one of them should hit.
Running back or rookies usually don't fall past ADP. Everyone has a disease, but maybe he will. We'll see.
You know who my highest owned player is, right?
No, I don't. Who is it?
Tajay Spears.
Oh yeah, you talked about that.
I think this. If it wasn't for the fact that his knee is scaring people, I think he'd be going 2 to 3 rounds earlier. Derrick Henry could easily hit the end of the road at any minute. I'm not saying we take him with the next pick, but I'm very, very high on Tajay Spears. He reminds me of a combination of Ahmad. He reminds me a lot of Ahmad Bradshaw of the Giants.
Mm. And it does take Derrick Henry getting out of the way. They finally gave Henry a career high in targets and even target per route run. It was a career high mark for Derrick Henry last year. I think just because they had no one else to give the ball to.
Well, yeah. And what was the guy that got hurt that he had a big game? What's that?
All of them. Kyle Phillips and Treylon Burks both got hurt last year.
No. The other running back.
It was Dontrell Hilliard.
Yes. And he was getting touches until he got hurt.
Yep.
And then Hassan Haskins was slug.
And obviously Hassan Haskins may be out of the way for a little bit here after his 4th of July shenanigans.
Yeah, I was not too worried about him, and now I am really not worried about him.
But it does help out your ownership. I just looked the other day, so I know for a fact my 4 highest owned players all tied are Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett, Hunter Henry, and Rashee Rice.
I like Bigsby here.
Let's go Bigsby.
So it's not an impressive running back room by any stretch, but that's okay because we went so high. We're now up to 6 of them. I think I want one more at least before I do like Shaheed. I do like Mims. I'm at least willing to start considering some. I think we do need at least one more wide receiver.
Definitely. I like Mims a lot if he makes it back.
Well, you know who I want if he makes it back here.
That's true.
But
I would still say Mims over him, but
over Spears?
Yeah. But even
Uh,
our build, though, I guess, yeah, we can use Spears.
I think we need another running back before we take a wide receiver. It's
That's
really thin. If you look, it really well. I do like Foreman. I don't mind Jeff Wilson.
Oh, Chuba. We got to get some Chuba in our
I
lineup.
love Chuba.
Yeah.
I liked Chandler.
We can do the Chandler Dwayne McBride dance. Zamir White has to be on our list.
I love Zamir right now. I think people are underestimating the chance that Jacobs doesn't hold out on games, but we've seen how many times, John, where someone holds out right up until the beginning of the year and they're A, not as effective, and B, more prone to injury.
Oh, Josh Jacobs is the worst first-round pick for redraft leagues, even in high-stakes leagues. I can't imagine drafting Josh Jacobs in the first round. We've now seen 5 times a running back has gotten 390 touches, and literally none of them reached 237 touches the following year. He's just the easiest fade in fantasy football. You can't Todd, you can't bring the points from last year with you. That's the whole point of the game. They do not carry over to the next year.
And that it should be the name of the episode. You can't carry last year's fantasy points with you.
Yeah.
So could we take my boy?
We can, yes. Completely fine.
All right.
No, totally fine. I mean, look at the options we already started underneath. That's the kind of team we're building. So
yes. All right. So Thornton, Pierce. Do you like Jaden Reed or Shakir?
I like Jaden Reed a lot.
Do you like Mechie?
Not a Mechie fan.
Hyatt.
He wasn't a good, like, I'm glad he's healed, but he wasn't a good prospect.
Yeah, I kept watching his tape, trying to understand what people were loving about him at Alabama, and I wasn't seeing it.
He's a good run blocking wide receiver. He's like Zach Pascal more than anything.
Oh, excellent! That's what I want for my teams. I you know who I do like, and I think would make a great 6th wide receiver, is Tank Dell. So I'm a big one for if you don't believe in Mechie, who's likely to get that role?
Dalton Schultz.
And well, that too. But I think that Dell has some really unique skills, and he seems to have Stroud actually pushed for him. I don't know that always pans out, but
he's just so small, I don't know how I don't know if I trust the Texans to use him correctly. I don't know about a gadget receiver in the NFL to begin with, making noise. But yeah, like he's at least a rookie in the final rounds. I'm okay with it.
You want Reed?
Yes. Do we want Reed over Jerome Ford?
It's up to you. I'm going to let you choose.
If Nick the Beast Chubb goes down, I want Jerome Ford.
He's one of those guys who keeps staring me in the face and I don't take. And so I welcome an opportunity. I'm also a big Pierre Strong guy. We are now up to, I like Khalil Shakir.
Yep.
I think he's interesting. I think Hyatt or Slayton fit this team.
Yep.
I'm not a Robert Woods guy. You?
No.
We could take a chance with Richie James.
Mm-hmm.
You say you're not a Dell guy. I don't mind Josh Downs, a talented guy.
Oh, Corey Davis is absolutely starting in 3 wide sets over McCole Hardman. Corey Davis is probably going to be one of their top 2 starting receivers.
Well, and if anyone could get it out of him, it might be Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. He was fine last year. He just got injured.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of those guys that, you feel like he's old. Let me see how old he is.
Like Alan Lazard has been touchdown dependent. And McCole Hardman is strictly a gadget guy. Like can't run routes.
I looked up Jag in the dictionary and I saw Alan Lazard's picture. 28 years old, Corey Davis.
Yes, very young.
And not a lot of rubber taken off those tires because of injury.
I take him in all the best ball leagues. But I do understand this is a different format. We're looking for spike weeks. But I genuinely think Corey Davis may start in 2 wide sets. So,
and I think we'll be able to get him in round 17.
yep.
I like Jaden Reed if he makes it back, and I like Hubbard. So I like Wilson.
I like Jaden Reed. Yes, as you said. Yes.
Why don't we go Reed? We almost took him last time.
Let's go Jaden Reed.
16 pick savings on him. That takes me off of Slayton and James. Still, I'm willing to go 7, but I think we definitely want a running back next.
We want some of these running backs too.
Oh, I like these guys. I like all 4 that are there.
Jaden Reed's a lot of fun because he does everything. Like, he's guaranteed to be starting in 3 wide sets. He got carries in college. He worked from the slot. He worked from the boundary. He got screens. He got deep shots. He's a punt and a kick returner. Like, he's just that guy that screams someone that can stand out and get plays called for him because he's so good at everything. Also had, like, what was it, number 50 overall capital, which was not expected whatsoever. So I think they love Jaden Reed too.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is a decent 6th wide receiver. Again,
star Dwayne McBride too.
I wasn't a big fan of his tape, but he's certainly
tape, Todd, he led the nation in carries of 10 yards. Like, all he does is explode on tape.
I don't know, not to me.
All right, well, we got to get him in here because Ty Chandler, it was the only reason Ty Chandler was the RB2 behind Alexander Madison in OTAs was because Dwayne McBride was still recovering from his hamstring injury in March. It's a wide open competition in camp. And right now with Ty Chandler's ADP is the one that's increased and everyone's forgotten about McBride. McBride's the one to still target.
I think that is very possible. I've just learned to trust my running back takes. At wide receiver, I make a lot of errors. Quarterbacks, I don't even try and analyze tight end too much and coming out. I do a little bit, but running back, I've been very good with. I think.
All right, well, how about this for also running back take that Zonovan Knight? Go ahead.
We're on the clock. What do you think of Zamir?
Yes, every draft. If you need a running back, your last running back, yes, Zamir White, 100%.
Right. I think that we could go wide receiver or tight end here, or running back here. Is there any other wide receivers that you like?
Devontae Parker, he's probably not going to make it. Marvin Jones is kind of interesting for the first 6 weeks without Jamison Williams. And no one takes him. I think he's interesting, though. Richie James will be active as the team starting punt returner. So I like Richie James. I am a Puka guy. I know there's slowly become a cult, but 350 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns the last 2 years. Deebo Samuel has averaged 11 yards per touch against Sean McVay since 2019. Like, if anyone's actually going to try to recreate Deebo, it's 100% Sean McVay because he's pissed off.
I love Puka, and McVay is I don't believe in Van Jefferson. I believe he's had a lot of chances and not stepped up. I think Puka can do a lot of the things that Robert Woods did for them. And I think McVay is innovative and smart enough to actually play him. We're also starting to hear a steady drumbeat. So I'm okay with Puka. I'm okay with Corey Davis. I'm okay with Lenny. I like Richie James. So, I'm going to let you pick the last guy. I feel like it was pretty even, us picking.
Yeah, I take Dwayne McBride every time. You talk about, this isn't our last pick, right? It is. It is our last pick.
It is our last pick. I mean, I know who. If it was me, I like Puka. I like Corey. I like. If you want Dwayne McBride, I will take him. I have no problem with that.
I want Dwayne McBride. Let's go ahead and put my little stamp on this.
I think that is a very reasonable decision.
And Puka got drafted right before, so we don't have to have an argument. It's okay.
Yeah, I wasn't going to argue. I try. The only time I've ever gotten into a fight with a partner over a last round pick was when Brady had retired last year.
Yeah.
I kept saying to my partner, I don't trust it. I think we should take Brady in every 20th round on the FFPC, and he kept putting me off, and I got into a fight about it. That was the only time I've ever fought about a last round pick.
And when I say argument, I mean discussion. I don't think I ever really argue. I mean, I have my opinions, but I never really argue anymore, especially when it comes to best ball. Like, I'll take players I don't like because their ADP's dip. So, like, every argument is useless, especially if I'm going to take the same players I don't like because they're valuable.
Yep. So we got a one. Go ahead, John.
Quickly, though, you mentioned RBs, late round RBs. Everyone's taking Izzy Abanikanda. But just remember, Zonovan Knight was out with an undisclosed injury due to OTAs. And Zonovan Knight led the entire Jets backfield in touches, and 6 of the 7 games he was active for. Not that he's going to outtouch Breece Hall, but if they're looking for insurance, like if Zonovan Knight shows up to training camp week 1, honestly, he's the player to draft, not Abanikanda. I don't care about Abanikanda. So everyone's forgetting about Zonovan Knight. I think that's the player you should be drafting late.
Yeah, I have been avoiding all of them because there's so many.
Completely fair. They hate Michael Carter, though. Michael Carter's not a real person. Like,
no,
they genuinely hate him.
I drafted a decent amount of him last year in the 15th round or whatever. But when a guy gets beat out by a guy I never heard of, in other words, the whole point of being the backup is that when the main guy gets hurt, you step up and get a big part of that role. He lost the role to a guy no one ever heard of. I don't know how anyone drafts Carter.
They are wondering how they drafted Carter. So they agree with you.
So, all right, we've got Deshaun Watson, James Conner, Kamara, Mitchell, A-Chain, Warren, Bigsby, Spears, Ford, Zamir White, McBride. Yes, there's nobody there that we love. There's a lot of question marks there, but that is okay when you draft 10 of them.
We stacked our quarterback.
Yep.
We have our onesie positions are in the same division, and there are really no other. I mean, there are a couple stacking opportunities, but really what everyone else is doing anyways is like stacking divisional opponents. So it just kind of, again, it's unique to take the best players, as crazy as that sounds, and just base your drafting off of ADP dips. And I feel like we did that well.
Yeah, I feel that unfortunately I would have liked 1 or 2 better running backs in that 8th, 9th round, but we got, they just went off the board right before we were on the clock. Mm-hmm. I feel like we did the best we could with this team. I love it for its uniqueness. I think the question I ask myself when I finish each one of these is if my quarterback and my wide receiver that he's throwing to have a big week, have I supported the team enough to win $20,000? And while this isn't one of my favorite ones, not, again, out of anything we did or didn't do, we just didn't get the running backs that fell to us that we had hoped. But I do think that if we get a big Amari Cooper week with Deshaun Watson, and let's face it, Cooper has been super spiky throughout his career, I think we could win some money here, John.
I agree. I actually like this team. And I am not someone who says that on every stream I'm on. Most of the time I say this is a dumb team, but I like this team.
Yeah, I like it overall. I mean, anytime if Cooper goes for 40, you've got both Wilson and Kupp who could give you 30, Hopkins who can give you 30, Evans who can give you 40. The running backs, if we get a couple other hits at wide receiver and Andrews hits, the running backs could be superfluous. We could win money with 15 points and 10 points at the 2 running back spots.
I think we did well.
Awesome. Tell everyone how they can find you again, and I will let you get to your wonderful Chicago. You still live in the Chicago area, right?
I do, yes. That's why I'm scrambling out of here to enjoy a street fest in the middle of the summer. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. Any last thoughts and on your work and on anything we discussed?
Yes, YouTube. If you want to watch more best ball drafting, youtube.com/4for4, the 4for4 channel, every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Also, the John Daigle show, which we just started, which isn't even really about football. It's just me talking about whatever the hell I want to talk about every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern to start your day, those 2 mornings. And of course, 4for4 football. Since I'm on here, and I do have waiver wire content. We have projections and rankings weekly for the redraft people. If you're interested in that kind of thing, there is a promo code just for this weekend for the holiday. You can use the last name Daigle coupon code and get 25% off if you choose to do so.
Awesome. John, always a pleasure to have you on. I really appreciate you doing it. I think we, considering how new this format is and how, we had some differing views on things. I thought we crushed it. Really appreciate it and hope to talk to you soon.
I agree. We had a blast, and I appreciate you inviting me on, Todd. Always fun to talk.
Awesome. All right, that's going to do it, folks. I've got Scott Barrett from Fantasy Points coming on next Tuesday for the next Sharp Football Show. And, if you know Scott, you know how sharp he is, how dank the stats are going to be. And we will see you on Tuesday.